Welcome to Adobe XD. Just a quick tutorial this time, or maybe a little bit longer, but the overlay tools interplaying with the fixed and scrolling features really add for a whole lot more vibrancy and realism within the prototype. So great tools coming out with Adobe XD now. So just a quick overlay. I'm just going to click back on here to demonstrate this. So I've just got basically three boards, just iPhone 10 format. So if I just click from design onto prototype, you see that these prototypes have links. Now these links, essentially dotted means it's working with overlay, and just the normal link is working with simple just transition effect. So let's see if I come back onto this one. If I click on that, you can see that this is a transition. So what I might do, instead of dissolve, I might just push left for this one, but you can see the difference. So no background on this one. So now if I come back and play it, I've got my tools looking at using the overlay, even got a translucent or transparency here. I've got these different buttons. If I come back to this one, this is a straight overlay effect, close that, but this is using a transition, and see how it's moving to a whole different screen. So that's the difference between transitions and essentially working with the overlay setup. So I click on that, it'll go back there, but I just want to click on this, just close this, and just also show you the scrolling effects. So that's what we're working with and how we're going to create that. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to go and create a new file. Let's start off from scratch. So I've lost my menu on the right hand side here. So what you can do is just go Control Tab, and that'll just bring the menu up if you ever need to get it. Okay, and we've also got different connections and tools here to work with. Okay, this is the actually sharing it, and this is how we can preview on device, but this is how we play it. So, oh, by the way, if you're on a Mac, you can also record a video of this by clicking through and playing with the features, but I'm not going to play and save with this at the moment. We can just do a quick version just at the end. So let's get on to creating this with a new file. So I'm going to go up just here and just go new. I think I'll just stay with the iPhone setup. So I'm just going to click on the iPhone here, and there you go. Now the first thing, if I bring this into view just a little bit better here, is I've got my iPhone format here, but I can scroll down to get a larger page size. But what am I getting here? I'm straight away getting a scrolling feature. So no, that's not what I want to do. I want to start off actually with the height and width, which I could put up to, say, let's say 899 there, and straight away that's increasing the actual area. If I hold my spacebar, then I can just move. But no, that's not what I wanted. So let's just start it nice and easy. I'm just going to delete that one, and just in the setup down the bottom here, I'm going to come back and just click on iPhone 10, start off with the right size, which is just 375 by 812 to get this pixel ratio set up, and so we can see it clearly. We can also click onto the different formats for portrait and landscape, but that's what we want. So let's go and set this up to begin with. Now, just to beginning the setup, if I click on the layout here, we see we get these layouts, whether you want to work with the layout system like so, or if you want to come back and actually change that to square and have grids. Maybe I'll just make that a little bit bigger and take up to say 16 pixels, but this is a great way just to measure your things up. But I'm not going to stay with the layout. I'll turn that off. I'm just going to sort of free flow this just so it's nice and effective for working with a quick example. Now let's get on and create maybe a little bit of a background. So if I click on the fill here, I'm just going to choose and just get some colors established just to get that going here, maybe a bit lighter, and choose any colors you want. I'm just doing this as I say free flow, so that'll do for the time being. So I've got my background color there, maybe just a little bit change of color there, a bit of a tone, a bit more aqua, that's a little bit more like I want, so that's fine. I'm just going to come to the pointer tool now. So I've got my background, and I'm not working with any layout effects in terms of grids. I just want to get this all sort of visually done. So next thing, I'm just going to get a little bit of a header. So By the way, at any stage we can change the name of this, or double click on here and change the name, but I'm just going to leave it and keep it nice and simple just for now. So let's go back and just click outside of that. I'm going to just put a little bit of a header in here, and I'm just going to drag this up. Okay, just eyeballing it visually initially. So here we are. We've got our graphic here. I certainly don't want that color, or do I want a border? So I'm just going to click on the fill here and just actually bring up playing with the colors and like that. So I've got my color there, and I can just click off this. Now the other thing is I'm going to give it some type just to get it going. So I'll click in here. I'm just going to call it start just to get it going, and certainly don't want that color, so I might just go back and play around with the color a little bit. Maybe you might even start off with clicking on this just to click that color, and then I can just tweak it just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is also change it from regular just to something that's going to stand out a bit more, and just see how that looks now. Okay, so that's cool. I don't want to keep it too dark or too big, but I want to start bringing in a bit of a menu system. So just to do that, I'm going to design a menu system. I'm going to go back and just create a hamburger icon. So I'm just going to drag out, holding my shift key just to restrain it there. And let's see, I've got my graphic here, border. Yes, I do want that, but I want to just keep it white. Click up there, and I want to give it about a size of, say, 6. I want to make this really obvious. Hit the return key, and great, I've got my first graphic there. So what I'm going to do is just hold the Option key and the Shift key, and see how I've got 14 there, and then just hold that again, and click on that, and 14 again. That's lined up really nicely. So within the menu, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep this framework going, but I just want to get a closing menu. So I'm just going to Option drag this just out of the way for the time being and just leave that up there. And with this one, I'm just going to click on that and give it maybe a 45-degree angle. And the same with this one. I'm just holding my Shift key just to snap it into place and just move that in like so. If I haven't got it quite right, I might just drag it in and get it lined up. So I've got my menu set up there, but I might even change the color of this one. So just the border effect there, I might just bring that in and bring it up like so, just to want to make it obvious. So I've got my menu sorted now. So with the menu, I'm just going to select this first one now, and I'm going to just group it. So just Command G, just like working with Illustrator and other programs along the Adobe set, just to keep it together, and it's going to bring it in, and I've got that all lined up nicely. That looks great. Of course, the other thing I better do is just go through and save that. So I'm just going to save that. I'll call this overlay start, just because that's what I'm sort of working with in terms of just getting this all sorted out. I'll just save that to the folder I want to save it to. So initially, there's our setup with our first graphic, etc. So this is going to be a good start. And now we're just going to start building a repeating grid interface. Okay, so let's start building up some of the graphics here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a simple shape, and I think I'll push this out to the side just a little bit here, and I'm just dragging in just a little menu element. With that, I'm just going to bring in the corners just a little bit. It's about great, and you can do this by using the tools here, even if you want to have individual side of it. In fact, I might even do this. I'll click onto this one here, and just on the, see the, it actually says the bottom left, down here, the top right corner, and see the top left. I want to go down to the bottom left. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this one 0 and just hit the return key. And so you can see that you can easily change things there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that just for the case of this one. And of course I don't want that color. I don't want the border on this one either. So I'm going to click off border and just go back, and I'm going to use my eyedropper tool just to sample the colors just a little bit. I'm just going to click up the top there, and then I'm just going to drag that down a little bit darker, just so I can play with that a little bit. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is just build this icon up a little bit more. Holding my Option key and Shift key, just want to constrain out just a little bit of a circle tool. This is where we could have a element of maybe a photograph of an image. Now you can just drag and drop these sort of things directly in, like images straight into any of the shapes of the building, but I'm just going to keep this really simple and really clean. I'm going to get rid of the border on this one, and with the color there, I'll just leave it as white just for the time being. And what I want is just a little bit of type, just to represent what any of these things are. So I'm going to click down here and just add some type in. So I'll just call it Overlay XD1. And great, so we've got our first image there. Now, if I'm happy with that color, I can just click on that any stage, and maybe I will just change that and just lighten it down a bit more. It's a little bit more like it, so I've got that sorted. And of course I better just save that. What I want to do is use a repeating grid, so I'm going to click on all of the elements there and type 2, and you can come up to repeat grid, and that means you can just drag down like so. I just want to get them repeating, and I'm actually going to go off the page just a little bit here. Now also, if they're not quite right, I can just click at any stage and make them wider or narrower. I think in this case a little bit wider would do fine, and I'll just let that go like so. Great. There's also fixed position when scrolling. So what I might do is I want to have these scrolling, but what does it mean by fixed position? Well, what I want to do is just keep the header and all the elements so that they stay static and everything scrolls behind. As you see, we've put more graphics, which will enable the screen to scroll. So how do we sort that out? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to go to the page view. So if I maybe just click on the icon here, and what I can do is an easy way of doing that. If I just Command 0, or not Command 0, but Command minus a little bit, just get the screen working. What you can do is just drag down to fit everything in. Okay, so I'm just going to drag it down like so, and you can see this is the scroller area, and this can be moved around, but this shouldn't be moved really because it shows you the end of the page on the iPhone format. Okay, so that's great, we've got scrolling in place. Now just to show you how this is working, if I just come back to the prototype view, in fact I might be able to just click here and get that scroller working like so. So that's great, but we want to fix the top part here. So if it's not quite right, I can still make sure I click on this, and I should still be able to just squeeze that in a little bit more if it's not fitting quite right. But that's good enough. I'm going to leave it like so for now. Right, as I said, let's fix things up. Okay, now there's one other problem, is when we scroll, we may get this falling behind, because whatever we've done first will be on the bottom. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to come back to my layers, and this is the layers that you're on anyway. If I click back here, there's the layers, and here's a repeat grid, essentially what's scrolling there. So the header, in fact, maybe I should start naming things. So I'm just going to call this header. And just the group here, so if I turn that off, we can see the group here. This is the nav, essentially the hamburger to open it up. But at least I know what's going on here, and the start. So really what I want to have there is I want the header above the grid. I certainly want the nav above that, and the start should be right up there as well. So with these elements selected, in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to click all of them, keep them separate for the time being, but what I want to do is just fix that position. Now when we go up just to test that out, see how we've got that fixed header there. Okay, so that's great. So things are looking really good at the moment, and of course I better go back and save this. So I might just zoom it up just a little bit bigger there, And of course I can move it around by holding my spacebar and then scrolling to get everything selected. Now what I want to do here is you can ungroup any of these, so when you're ready to. So I'm just going to click on this one now, and I want to ungroup the grid. So no longer is it going to be repeating grid, and they're going to be individual objects. Okay, and I just want to do that because I'm going to use that to select my elements here, which will be another page. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that's saved once more. I'm going to create another page because I want to get my overlay effects basically this time for another part of the navigation. Let's do that first, which will be from this button. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to just basically on my file here, just to get, well actually I should go down to the page here. I'm just going to add in my extra overlay effect. So make sure I click onto that, and I've got my files here. I just want to click on iPhone 10, and you can see how this other page goes quite a bit deeper. What I'm going to do with this particular overlay on this one is I'm going to drag it in a little bit smaller because I want it to sort of fit and roll over the images there. Maybe even if I just undo that once more, I did a bit of a mistake, and just drag it back in, make it even skinnier again. And you'll see what I'm doing here in just a minute. So I'm just really eyeballing it at the moment. I'll undo that, and I'm just going to go and now go and change that color. I'm not worried about changing the names, but this is essentially the overview. I might just move it in a bit closer as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is eyedropper tool. I'm just going to go and sample the color there, but I'm going to just bring that a little bit lighter, maybe this way, and that's looking good. And let's see, what else I'm going to do. Well, I'm going to come back through and just give this a menu system. Okay, so with the menu system there, I'm just going to get hold of the top. I'm just going to drag that in like so, just lining it up there. Oops, I better make sure that lines up correctly. Just bring that through there, make sure it comes down. And I don't want a border effect on this one. See the color there. I'm going to just give it a little bit of a lighter color, just to give it a sort of effect. So just click like so. So it's lining up with the menu system there. Now what I should have is I do want to do a menu, and I'm just going to click here. I'll just use the type I already had, and I'll call this XD1. Maybe this is just going to be the menu here. I'm going to stay with the current type, and just holding my Option key and my Shift key, just building this menu. Okay, I'm just going to keep this nice and simple. I'll make this 4. Three, 2, and what I'm going to do, if you remember what we had here before, I just want my cross menu and just take it in like so, just to close it. So how does this work with doing the overlay? The other thing I might do with this one is, let's see, I think I'll just leave it like that, and you can see what happens. It's just the background, and then we can add to this at any time. So what I'm going to do is just come back to give it some prototyping effects. Rectangle 3, that's just the nav of the second one here. So I can just see that there. It's good to name it. I'll just call it nav box. Whatever naming convention you want to work with. And I'm going to go to my prototype view now and just click on this, and essentially I want to go over to bring this navigation in here. Now what we've got here, instead of just, which is going to be tab, but I want to change this to overlay. And now you see what happens. This is how the overlay is going to come in. What I want to do is just move it to the shape like so, so it just scrolls in really, really nicely there. and let's see what's happening. And this is why I wanted to give you an example with the background. So I'm just going to save this, but I'm going to play it now. Okay, click on the menu, and there's an effect which is dissolve in, but it's really not quite the view that I wanted. The background really doesn't matter, essentially, because what we need to do is put a box shape in, because that's going to be what slides over the top. So let's come back to this one again. So just on this view here at the moment, and I go back to design view, and I'm going to put in another box shape just to fit with that, and I'm going to take it down like so. I'm going to give it the color I want. Don't want the box shape around there, but I do want the color, and make it nice and dark. And also with this particular file here, just with the border, I just want to round the bottom part in here. So what I'm going to do is just with the bottom left, I think it was at the top, if I just hold it over there, so it's top left, top right, and bottom right, and bottom left. So I just want to make this about 40 and hit the return key. So there you go. And of course we've got it here. I need to just drag that right down the bottom so we can see everything in its right space, and the nav box just above that as well. Okay, now it's starting to look good. So if I just go File, Save now, and let's go and just test that in the animation, which should be the whole file here. And great, it's working brilliantly, except for I don't like that navigation view. So let's click up here. Instead of a dissolve, let's just slide it in from the right. We'll see how that looks. No, I think I want to go in from the left. So as you can see, it's no problem to create anything you want. So we'll slide it through like that, and it's working great. And we've also got our nav at the bottom here. Now all I needed to do was put in another overlay and another one if I wanted to, so I can have any one of these buttons that will bring in another effect. But essentially that's how you do it. Now the only other things I mentioned before is we can just click on a video, and then we can save that video as we go through different stages, scrolling through, and then stop it here, and it just saves off a video that you can save and play off, just as an example. The other thing is that you can simply go up and share this. I click on that, and I can publish the prototype for anybody to view this, particularly a client when you're testing. Anyway, that's how you put together your overlay tools rather than just normal transitions working with Adobe XD. Thanks for watching.